Everybody can't be in the room today, but everybody can go to www.ledgerregister.gov. Then we take those comments into consideration. So that's how that give and take will happen over the next few months.
And what type of information specifically would you want from people, or will it be spelled out in the Federal Register if, again, they either see an intermediate or feedstock, they want to support that listing, or they don't see one that they have and they'd like to propose that that be added in the final rule? Will you spell out in that Federal Register notice what kind of information people would need to provide you?
Yes, we have in the past. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, in terms of the proposed regulation, what we would need to consider adding another category, I think the best place to look is the previous pages in the proposal. I mean, what kind of information did we present about the categories that we're proposing? We talk about, we define the category, we talk about the number of products that we're aware of, we talk about the number of manufacturers, we talk about any particular performance features, or basically it's kind of an inventory of this is what we know about this particular product category and the products that fall within it. And so, if you make a product and you just don't see yourself in the program and would like to, just mirror what we're doing for those categories that we are proposing to add. That's all. I mean, it's nothing. We don't have a secret database behind the scenes that's got a lot of stuff in it that we would ask you to give us that's not showing up. Generally, what we know we put into the proposed rule. And so, if we don't know about your product, tell us all the things, answer all those things. Provide data that falls into all those slots that's already in the preamble. That's the simplest way to do it.
Do we have any burning questions? If not, we should. Yeah.
It's about round 13, and you mentioned that you kind of have an idea of what that'll look like at this point. I was hoping you could kind of explain that. It seems like when it gets into complex end products, it might be difficult to know how to designate if only so much of it can be bio-based and made from those bio-based intermediates, and what that might look like.
Sure, and back to what I stated earlier, it's a little, just to reiterate, round 11 is intermediates, round 12 is complex products, it's separate. We are not prepared right now to propose a round 12 yet. It's going to take more. We've done research, and what we found is it's complicated, just like you said. So the more we learn, we need to learn more. So we're working on round 12 on complex products, but it's a work in progress. Round 13, which will be another regulation, we're much closer to proposing that because that's the 50 in use. Those are not complex. As I view a complex products as like a car or a mattress, something. I mean, a car's too far, but it could be. So the round 13 on end use made out of intermediates, the only reason we're closer on that is because we already know we know a lot of things that are already out there through the certification program of products that are end use that are made of intermediates. Do you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the information that we have. In the catalog, we have all these products that are certified, but they're not qualified, okay? And so what they really are, they're finished products that are being made from these things that are intermediates. Some of them, most of them probably will be covered by whatever we do when we try to pull the two halves of the program together. So, the idea that we've got a whole lot more information about finished products made from intermediates is just kind of a natural outgrowth of the way the labeling program worked and the way the catalog is. One of the things that's a drawback for the complex assemblies is we don't have any in the catalog. I mean, and that's not because we've not been interested or not been willing. It's because, people who make things like this, and half of this plastic may be biobased and they may not be. People who make things like this haven't been, joining the program. I mean, they haven't been sending us information, and we don't have certified products that tend to be these more complex assembly types of products. We have resins, we have bags, we have, laundry detergent, whatever, but we don't have assembled type items.
I think,
It'll come along, but it's just not there yet.
I think we have to move on. Will you guys be here during the break that we're gonna have in a little while? If people have some additional questions, maybe they can snag you at the break.
Thank you all. Joe, if you want to head on up towards the stage, we have a different kind of a bio-based success story this afternoon. And when I called out to some of our friends in Iowa and said, who made that new renewable chemicals bill possible, they all pointed to the gentleman to my right. And we're pleased that Joe Hrdlicka is with us today. Since 2014, he's been the executive of the Iowa Biotechnology Association. He's the CEO of that organization with 100+ members. And Joe came out today. We appreciate you flying in, and I know you've got to fly out this afternoon. But Joe's going to walk us through how Iowa is now a different kind of a trailblazer with this new renewable chemicals bill and what it means for all of you, and maybe it sets a precedent for other states too. Thank you, Joe.
Well, thank you. Appreciate, Karen, you inviting me to be here. I think it's been a good thing. I have received a lot of phone calls, but your call was the first, 2 days after the bill was signed, I believe. All these requests started coming into me. Joe, we'd like you to come and talk about this renewable biochemical tax credit program that you passed in Iowa. So if you're going to be at the Bioenergy Conference next week, I'll be there. I'll be doing that show. Rumor has it I may be opening for Frank Caliendo at the Improv Friday. I think it's all been a good thing because of the interest that this legislation has created. What I would really like to do today is, hopefully my presentation makes all of us better advocates for these types of products. Because, I relate back to a conversation I was having with some attendees earlier today. The advocacy for these types of products can never stop. We're too new, and there isn't enough understanding yet among the critical mass of the public why this is important. And I think what I'm going to share with you today illustrates that, hopefully. It's a good example of that case, sort of a case study, if you will. And I want to harken back to two comments that were made earlier today. First of all, when Secretary Vilsack talks about creating economic growth opportunities for future generations, I think this is what this policy is designed to do. And that, again, that can never stop. And in Iowa, we know it can't ever stop because we think, the whole world of bioproducts is so important. And I want to harken back to a comment you made earlier, Karen, about being go-getters. I think in Iowa, if our economic development, top economic development official Debbie Durham was with me today, I wish she was, you'd understand, we don't let things happen in Iowa, we make things happen. And all of us in this room have to start making things happen. So what I'm going to do is walk you through a little bit about why we felt this legislation was important for Iowa. I think it speaks for itself. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the connections we had to make from a stakeholder and coalition standpoint that maybe spurs some thought as to, wow, I never thought about working with those folks in a coalition or collaboration type mode. And then I'll walk through a little bit about how the program works and, most importantly, answer any questions you have. So why was this important to Iowa? Well, the numbers bear it out pretty clearly. You may or may not know this, but we're the nation's second largest producer of biomass. You don't have to drive too far out of Des Moines in any direction, and on your left or your right, you're going to look and you're going to see some fields, and you're going to start to understand, oh, this is what they have going on here in Iowa. That's kind of what makes this train drive, and drives real fast. We got a lot of corn and beans in the state of Iowa. We also, which makes this really, really meaningful, have over 50 bioprocessing facilities in our state. State of the art. The world's largest ethanol plant. Does anybody know where that's located? Nope. Just south of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. you're thinking about the world's largest cellulosic ethanol plant, which is now not in Emmitsburg, it's in Nevada, Iowa. So you're making my point. We have state-of-the-art bioprocessing facilities dotted all throughout our state. I think what also makes this real meaningful is we've been leaders in developing what we refer to as co-location facilities. We have 4 state-of-the-art co-location facilities where there's a hub location and folks with other types of technologies are using the byproducts of those companies and they're making other higher value products. Great combination for this type of legislation we're going to touch on here today. And, and we've been through it. We've been through the ropes. In Iowa, we understand the value of making an investment, a big investment, in bio-based products. Our ethanol experiment, in the early days, we can track back to a $60 million investment that was made in the building of the original ethanol plants that started dotting up all over the state as ethanol was getting the wind underneath its wings. That investment was paid back in less than a year. We have 9,000 jobs based on the ethanol industry in Iowa. And I'm sure some of you in this room have read the studies, the reports about what the renewable chemical potential is. And it's up to estimates of 50,000 jobs within 4 to 6 years. So for us in Iowa, it's not a matter of getting a slice of the pie. We're going to get our bite. It's how big the slice of the pie is. So that's really what drove us getting behind this legislation. There's a great opportunity for us out there. Now, if you're a real wonk and you want to dive deep into some of the statistics that I've just elaborated on a little bit, you can go to our website, iowabio.org, and there's a study that we did on our resources tab. We released it early this year, just before the first week of the legislative session. And we go a little deeper into some of these statistics if you want to look numbers. Bottom line, in our state, overall public consensus is because of the leadership that we've taken on renewable products, citizens expect that. They expect Iowa to be leaders. It's overwhelmingly favorable in our state to be renewable. And quite honestly, I think the general public in Iowa understands that consumers are demanding that. So, hey, why shouldn't we be leaders in that space? So that gives you a little picture as to why we felt this was really important for Iowa. So what's next? What are some of the connections we have to make this happen? Well, first of all, we have to get the legislators to understand. But before that, I would tell all of you, if you don't have strong relationships with your governor's office, your top economic development officials, and your legislators about the rationale for the benefits of bioproducts, you better start those conversations. And my good friends from Bio are here. They do excellent work in compiling some great data you can use to make this case. We're really lucky in Iowa. I was able to walk into the governor's office because, he's the chief executive of the state. I'm not going to get any legislation passed unless he blesses it, right? Well, that wasn't a very hard sell. We talked with the staff and Governor Branstad, and immediately, hey, this has our full support. He talked about it in his, in his he actually referred to it in 2 of his State of the State addresses. It's a great thing. But maybe even more importantly was a conversation I had with our top economic development official, Debbie Durham, who not only is she a great resource and friend to our industry, she's a good friend of mine. We've done a lot of work together. And when you have a relationship with that person where you're at a bio conference and you're hearing people speak about renewable chemicals and the potential for that, and we both look at one another and we say, why aren't we doing something to incentivize this? There's great potential in our state for that. That's a great relationship, right? From an advocacy standpoint. So this was in the spring of 2014, so Debbie and a group of people on her staff. We spent the better part of the summer, tracking down some model legislation that we could use to work for Iowa. We talked to a lot of our members and we crafted a bill. And we went out with it during the 2015 legislative session. I knew we were onto something, even though we did not get that bill passed in 2015. But you folks who do regular advocacy will understand the value and the importance of this. We would talk for about 60 seconds to legislators and explain what's somewhat of a technical piece of legislation. Within 60 seconds, you could see the lights go on. They got it. Yeah, this leverages our ethanol industry. This is good for renewable products, economic development. I thought, okay, we're onto something here. We're going to get this passed. It's not a matter of if, it's when. So fast forward to 2016. I thought in 2015 we got a lot of groundwork laid, and basically the only reason we didn't get it passed in 2015 was there were some budgetary squabbles at the very end of session, and we got caught up in that fight, which is fairly common. But we came back around, and I think we were very well armed for success in 2016 because we got the bill passed even before the session ended. Well before, about a month before the session ended. And we had a press conference, like as I referred to earlier, to launch this white paper study that we had done. And when I saw the certain legislators who were in attendance at that, I thought, okay, this is the year. This is when we get this done. But we would not have done that had we not assembled a really unique coalition of people to help us get this ball over the goal line. And the first people who were tremendously helpful were the universities. Now, you may think of Iowa State, maybe some of you are familiar with Iowa State, maybe you're not, but there's a lot of research that goes on at that institution about renewable products, bio-based products. But that being said, sometimes universities, and I don't mean this as a knock, it's just the nature of how things are in the world of advocacy, their most important priority, as it should be, is funding. But I will tell you that the universities in Iowa took a very special interest in this legislation. They were very helpful to us. Not only Iowa State getting us a white paper document drafted that was very credible to our cause, but when we needed experts from sort of an objective viewpoint to come and testify in front of legislators, they were there on a dime. It was a great relationship. We of course had a lot of ag groups involved. Corn growers, Soybean Association, biodiesel folks, the Renewable Fuels Association, all of some of the usual, the Agribusiness Association of Iowa. I had to work a little bit hard to get, Farm Bureau to work with us, but Farm Bureau is a great group in Iowa, but we have a water quality issue that is very paramount to the ag industry in Iowa, and that was a little bit more focused on their radar screen, but eventually they joined us and were very helpful. The Bar Association. Who would think that the Bar Association would step forward and get involved in a legislative issue like this? Well, we have some great members of law firms who are part of our association, and they love to help these startup companies who are in this space preserve their intellectual property. So they felt it was a great opportunity to engage. The utilities were very helpful. All of these sorts of facilities need power, of course, so those folks were very helpful. And then you tie it with some of the key business, mainstream business organizations we were able to get involved. Some of our larger members were able to help with that. We had really a rock star coalition to put this through, and I think that was one of the big reasons we had going for us to get this through, because literally at the end of the day, there was maybe one group that registered against the bill. So it makes it pretty hard for all the legislators when they see all these very large constituency groups throughout the state of Iowa in support of this legislation. It's hard to say no. So that's a little bit, I think the other piece that really helped too was, I mentioned budgetary issues. We did add an element to the bill, in 2016 that made the bill revenue neutral, and of course that was extremely helpful. I think that was probably the last ingredient that helped make us successful. So what does the program do? Well, it's really straightforward. Basically, you will, and this is a refundable tax credit, so it's real money, particularly for a startup company that's looking to, get a facility off the ground. This is a great program. It's 5 cents per pound of qualified chemicals. We have a list of about 40 chemicals that they're referred to in the legislation as building block chemicals. And now it'll be capped at $1 million per year for a company under 5 years old, and it's capped at $500,000 for a company that's older than 5 years. So a little bit more incentive for the companies on the newer end of things, if you will. The program is good for 10 years, and we'll actually start paying out in 2018. So for the calendar year 2017 is the first year you can make a claim. You can make claims for up to 5 years during that 10-year program, and they do not have to be consecutive years of claims. So, a company could wait a year, and, if they have expanded use of or production of chemicals, skip a year and then go beyond in the next year if they choose. So we try to make it flexible. That's about it. That's how the program works. And I can tell you, everybody, as I alluded to earlier, a lot of interest in this program based on the inquiries that we've received. I know our Economic Development Authority has received a lot of inquiries about it. So now we just kind of have, it's waiting for the big, okay, now we got to do it, and we'll start it, and we'll see who comes. So maybe I'll be back in a couple of years to tell you that some great companies have taken advantage of this program, and we've significantly grown this industry space in Iowa. I hope that's the story. I can come back and tell you.
We do too, and thank you. Any questions for Joe? Got one here.
Thanks, Joe. I'm from Biobased in DC, and we have spent a long time trying to achieve for, under the federal tax code, something that Joe has just managed to achieve in Iowa. I wanted to ask you, can you expand a bit on which chemicals, which building blocks qualify, and how they might sort of impact on the people in this room here in terms of the type of products that they get made from? Or
Funny you should ask. That's one of the biggest questions I get. What qualifies? Well, Claire and I had a conversation about this. There probably will be more chemicals added to this as we move forward. There's an ability to add chemicals. But this is the language. I clipped this from the bill and put it on a handout. So, Karen, I'll leave these with you, whoever would like to have that. Rather than reading through a bunch of terms, I'll leave that with you. And Karen has my contact information too. If anybody has any questions about it or they want to learn more about the program, please get in touch with me.
Joe's bio is on the soybiobased.org website. Again, we appreciate you making it out. I know you've got to head to the airport shortly, but we are about to head into a break. So maybe some folks can have some one-on-one conversations with you if there's of interest.